What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Okay, so today, unfortunately, we have real battle babushkas, not the ones which we're usually talking about, but the actual Russian veterans who did either serve in the Second World War or they were affected by it severely. And so, long story short, in order for them to be shown appreciation by the Russian government, they gave them food. Basically, some of them received pieces of chocolate, some of them received fruits, vegetables, some of them received tea bags. Yes, not the entire box of tea, but just some bags, like tea bags. And then some of them, for some reason, received canned meat and even bottles of vodka. This is the real situation in Russia, no matter how Putin talks about during victory parade. We love you, we respect you, we will forever cherish your sacrifice, you are irreplaceable part in the human society of Russia. Well, it is all for the show. Surprise, surprise. These are the veterans, which unfortunately will most likely never make it to the Russian federal TV channels. But still, they do exist, people need to know about their existence and how are they treated. Right now it is time to get serious, and first of all let's talk about the situation in the south and the east of Ukraine and the Battle of Kharkiv, which already started. This will most likely be the major battle by the end of this year. Then I'm gonna talk about literally game-changing underground factories, which were recently discovered on the territory of Ukraine, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why it is so important. To begin with, right here is the video which has been spread across multiple Russian propagandistic channels, and this is basically them destroying Ukrainian Patriot systems, when in fact these were literally just wooden decoys. You can see the consequence of this attack. There is literally nothing else except the impact itself. But well, Russians, they did cut the endings of those videos and they said, we did destroy yet another Patriot system. Next is the video from Luhansk region, where yet another oil refinery of Russians has been destroyed recently. But unfortunately, this last night Russians did start their offensive, targeting Kharkiv region and Kharkiv city itself, and the main direction was from this small settlement called Vovchansky. It is approximately 70 kilometers until Kharkiv city, so taking into consideration how long it took Russians to advance in Bakhmut only, even so just couple kilometers. This will be most likely an unreachable target for Russians, but they still decided to try it. And guys, if you do remember, we already mentioned this potential upcoming Kharkiv battle in my previous videos. Approximately 50,000 Russian soldiers were spotted to the north of Ukraine. Well, now they have been set in motion. Besides that, it is estimated that Russians also brought approximately 400 tanks, 930 armored vehicles of different kinds, 990 artillery systems, and 120 multiple launch rocket systems. But this entire new so-called front line, the Kharkiv front line, is approximately 700 kilometers wide, which is sounding like it's a lot of military personnel and military vehicles Russians brought, but this will not be enough to maintain the offensive across such a wide territory. Besides that, the beginning of the Russian offensive, it kinda makes perfect sense, because Putin just had his favorite holiday, victory parade, in Russia, and usually after it happens, the patriotic sentiment inside Russia increases significantly. So basically this offensive of Russians against Kharkiv started exactly the very next day, when the patriotic feelings were at their maximum. But well, once again, I personally do not expect much progress. I will obviously keep a close eye on the development of this situation. At the same time, some drone footage was confirming that Russian soldiers were already present in some Kharkiv region settlements, such as for example Pylne, as you can see from this picture. The question is how Ukrainians allowed Russian soldiers literally being in these settlements and not push them out, but well, it is too late for this question, now they have to defend. And just like since the beginning of this so-called special military operation, Russians started to just chaotically and randomly shelling neighboring regions. Such as, for example, right here you can see the video from such of these settlements, where Russians just literally were attacking wherever, trying to cause panic and chaos among mostly civilians, and then at least hopefully for them, Ukrainian soldiers, they did not achieve neither of those goals, only besides uniting Ukrainians even more. And Zelensky himself, he did acknowledge that the offensive of Russians against Kharkiv has officially started. But one key difference between the start of the special military operation and whatever is happening right now is that in the very beginning Russians did have an element of surprise, because yes, they were threatening countless times, but nobody believed them they're gonna actually do it. Well, now Ukrainians were preparing for several months straight, building fortifications, digging trenches, so now Ukrainians are ready. Back in 2022, Russians were not able to achieve anything significant, they even got pushed back after several months. Well, now the expectations are even lower. And according to some military experts, such as, for example, Ivan Kurochevsky, this is pretty much as maximum as Russians will be able to achieve, because the first 12 hours are the most crucial, and whatever they can capture, the next development of the situation will be based on this. Well, in the first 12 hours, the only thing Russians were able to do is to put some contested territory. They were not able to seize any land at all. But to be honest, I personally think that the main goal of this Russian attack is not to capture Kharkiv, but instead is to disperse the Ukrainian army, to pretty much take their attention away from the east. Ukrainians will have to protect Kharkiv, they cannot just leave it as it is, because Russians then will just simply continue to advance. So Ukrainians have to respond. And the number of soldiers is obviously not unlimited. They will have to take some from different regions and bring them to the north, unfortunately making some defenses a little bit weaker. Some other people consider that one of the main goals of Russians at this stage is to create this so-called buffer zone we've also been talking about in my previous episodes, which is basically the zone where technically no combat activities are supposed to take place. And for some reason, Russia decided to make this so-called buffer zone only on the territory of Ukraine. But well, Ukrainians are obviously protecting themselves, so they do not care about this nonsense. And so this repel of this most recent significant attack so far was successful. We already have several videos Ukrainians successfully destroying Russian advancing military vehicles, once again using simple FPV drones. And just to potentially support my assumption about the main goal of Russians being dispersing the Ukrainian army, right here is the statement of the representative of the Ukrainian army, Mr. Kovalenko. He is also saying that most likely the actual main attack of Russians in the near future will be against Pokrovsk, Konstantinovka and Chasiv Yar. And for this, they need to withdraw the attention of Ukrainians from these settlements and bring them somewhere else, once again, Kharkiv region. But Ukrainians, they do have a surprise answer for Russians. These are these secret underground entire factories that we're gonna talk about them right now. But before we proceed, guys, if you don't mind, if you do like this style of daily news updating, can you please simply like this video and subscribe to my channel? Helps a lot. Thank you so much. You can also check my second channel, The Russian Dude Investing, where I talk about the stock market news. The link to my second channel is down below. And so yes, these underground entire factories, they have been recently discovered across entire Ukraine. It's multiple of them, even though obviously the exact location will never be revealed to the general public. I mean, guys, right? It makes sense, right? The majority what they produce, or pretty much everything what they produce, is military related, which are weapons, munition, armored vehicles, military related one obviously, and some other heavy machinery and missiles obviously. Some of these are the equivalents of what West can send to Ukraine, which creates an extremely good benefit for Ukraine, what we're gonna talk about right now. So obviously support from the West to Ukraine is extremely crucial, but unfortunately it does take some time for this support to arrive. And even though whenever it is already in Ukraine, it has been to be transported to the front lines, Ukrainians have to learn how to use it, they have to employ them. So yeah, long story short, it takes weeks or even months at some point for them to actually start using them. What will happen if you start producing those things or their equivalents on your own territory? This significantly reduces the time when you can actually take out this ready available produce and start actually using it. So instead of being this weeks or months, potentially it can be only days. They can potentially even have these factories as close to the front lines as possible, making the deliveries even shorter than this. And this is a massive game changer. If you remember, pretty much almost since the beginning of this war, Ukrainian representatives, they were always saying, thank you so much for your support, West. But unfortunately, can you please do it a little bit faster? We need this right now. We needed this yesterday. And so with these underground factories, they solve this problem. And don't forget the $61 billion military support package to Ukraine, which America signed approximately last week. So this Western support is also coming as well, which pretty much, as you can see, this is going to be a very big problem for Russia by the end of this year. Once again, the May 9th victory parade is over, there is no more deadlines for Putin, they're most likely gonna switch to defensive in the near future as soon as they're gonna fail this Kharkiv offensive. And then will be exactly the time when Ukrainians will start receiving their own support, both their own and from the West. As a result of this, we might see some absolutely major changes, potentially even final changes in this war, which will turn the tide in favor of Ukrainians. And well, what is the reaction of Russians, you might ask? Well, according to some Russian government representatives, such as, for example, Mikhail Sheremet, he said that we know about these factories, they're not gonna do anything, we can destroy them, don't even worry about this, there is no panic, stop panicking, there's no panic, I told you there's no panic. The interview he gave, it can be summarized pretty much as following. He was panicking so much, you can see it in his eyes, but well, he said, there is no panic, we are absolutely confident that all the goals of the special military operation will be achieved, which proves only the opposite thing, there is panic. And now guess what, the talks about Ukraine joining NATO once again resumed. This is it's just absolutely extraordinary. Let's talk about this right now in my bonus chapter, which will be available on my Patreon. Guys, so if you do want to support my work, this is the main source of income right now I have, is from my Patreon. Please go ahead and check my Patreon, the link is down below. There is extra chapter, the episode is fully uncensored, and there's hundreds of additional photos and videos every single week. Once again, the link to my Patreon is down below. Thank you so much. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you found the information useful. Go ahead and check all the useful links are down below. My PayPal, Patreon, Instagram, and obviously merch. Thanks so much for watching. See you on Tuesday.